Jays fans have had enough, and following it is a disastrous 24 hours, not only for the Blue Jays this season and beyond, but disaster 24 hours in Blue Jays history. We have some new reports that have dropped, revealing some more ridiculous information surrounding some behind the scenes negotiations regarding Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s contract. We also have some rumors that have dropped, revealing some interesting details that also reveal the number that Vlad Guerrero Jr. was supposedly looking for. We're going to break all that down in this episode, as well as discuss a new report that dropped from Ken Rosenthal, which adds some more salt to the wound. Stay tuned for all that in this episode, but before we get into it, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. If you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Jays content. So thank you guys for your continued support, and we're on the road now to 17,000 subscribers. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot to go over today. Now, obviously, it was a disastrous last 24 hours for not only Toronto Blue Jays fans, but just for the Blue Jays organization in general. And you can see this here from Keegan Matheson. He came out and he gave a little bit of insight, and I wanted to start with this because he said nothing good happened today, nothing encouraging to take from it whatsoever. And that's kind of the best way to summarize what Jays fans are feeling right now, because we're heading into spring training. I mean, spring training is underway, but games are starting over the next few days. And over the next week, we're going to start to see actual players playing baseball, which is usually a super exciting time for Jays fans and for everybody. And I'm obviously still very excited to see Jays play baseball. However, it's a bit less exciting because the Jays struck out on Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s extension, and now there's a big question mark going into it. If they're not playing well by the deadline, there's going to be trade talks coming up. It is an absolutely disastrous scenario. And some new reports have dropped. I'm going to go over a bunch of them because obviously yesterday we got a little bit of information, and there's been a bunch of new reports. We're going to dive into all the things. So I want to say we'll start with this here. And again, I covered this yesterday briefly, and I want to preface it by saying there is still a chance that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. re-signs with the Blue Jays, whether it be before the season starts this year or into the next, off season when he's a free agent. He said he wants to re-sign in free agency and wants to be a Blue Jay for life, but now they'll have to beat 29 other teams. So taking that into context, we can start to dive into some of the new reports. David Ortiz came out and basically said, and it was retweeted by Hector Gomez according to his sources, that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was looking for / deserves $585 million over 13 years. You see this here from Joshua. If the Ortiz comment about Vlad deserving $585 over 13 is based on the ask, which is a reasonable assumption given the specific number used, of course the Jays turn it down. Heck, if Vlad were a free agent right now, he probably doesn't get close to that. And you can see this here from Brandon. General takeaway from yesterday is that Vlad was pretty set on hitting free agency all along, unless an offer came in an astronomical number that I doubt he ever figured he would get. And that's one of the things now that has fans kind of torn. And Joe Siddle actually responded to that original tweet here by BK and hit with a bullseye emoji, basically saying that, okay, he's right on the money with what he said here. And we know Joe Siddle came out and also said that he didn't expect Vlad Jr. to ever sign an extension this offseason. That was going to happen in free agency. So I want you to let me know down below if the number that David Ortiz threw out there, which is 585 over 13, was the number that gets it done, or even 550 over 13. Do you think the Jays should have done the deal? And the more and more reports that come out, it seems like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was only going to extend in this offseason with the Blue Jays if that number was absolutely astronomical and something he could guarantee himself would be more than what he's going to get next offseason in free agency. And that seems to be what it was, which is why a lot of fans now are starting to, some of the fan base is still very upset with Ross Atkins, because there's also a part of me that's like, okay, it's a ridiculous amount of money. I don't think Vlad deserves 585 or 13. I don't know if he deserves 500 million given his positional versatility and all these different things. But if you're the front office and you're Rogers, you might just have to write a blank check and pay him. That's one side. The other side of the fence is it's a little bit ridiculous for Vlad to ask that much. And that's kind of the big question mark going forward here. There are only 3 hitters to ever get a contract with an AAV of 40 million or more, and that is Soto, Ohtani, and Judge. You can see this here. Vlad is below that. That ask is 45 million for 13 years. He's younger than Ohtani and Judge, but no. So there's a lot of, controversy going on surrounding whether or not he deserves that amount. And again, this is from David Ortiz speculating on that number. That's not a confirmed number by Rogers or anything like that, but it does seem like a pretty reasonable figure pretty specific figure, that David Ortiz would throw out there if he didn't have any insight. And this column also dropped by Ken Rosenthal. And, usually we're all upset about Ken Rosenthal cooking the Blue Jays. I think at a time like this, I'm fine with him going out and going after the front office and the Jays, because, the Jays fans don't deserve it, but the Jays front office deserve it. And as fans, all we can do is sit back and watch here. Those offers, according to a source briefed on Guerrero's history with the club, failed to acknowledge shifting dynamics in the market. By reacting more promptly to those dynamics, the Jays likely could have locked up Guerrero years ago for much less than he sought in recent weeks. And that's one of the other big questions here, because we just obviously saw him mix. And when they say, and this is according to the report, that they failed to acknowledge the shifting dynamics in the market, clearly that means the Soto contract specifically, and of course the Ohtani one, but the Soto one most recently directly affected what Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was ever going to get in free agency. And the Jays probably had their number that they were set on, whether that's a max at 400 million, 385, whatever it was. We know they had an offer at 340, and they said that they came up from that offer. So you have to assume maybe 360 to 380, maybe touching 400 million. But they weren't accounting for the shifting dynamics in the market, which I would assume would be touching 500 million, touching 585, like David Ortiz said. And the big question now would have been, why didn't they sign him years ago after even the 2021 season when he was an MVP caliber player? After 2022, now obviously this is hindsight because he had a couple of bad years to start his career in 2019, 2020. Not bad considering he was a rookie and very, very young, 19 and 20 years old. But, low 800 OPSs, or really 19 and 20, he was at a high 700 OPSs. So there was obviously a bit of risk there. And it's interesting, but you also have some fans coming out and saying we traded for Andres Gimenez's contract and signed Anthony Santander, but couldn't extend the best developed organizational player in our lifetime that really wants to be here. I hate this. So fans are really just, I'm upset. We're all upset as fans, but it's really interesting because the situation, I don't know if it's as clear cut as being super mad at the front office necessarily for this specific incident. I think they should have extended him in the past. I'm very mad at the front office for not getting it done earlier, albeit it was a very, interesting decision, difficult decision to make. But if he was asking this amount that, is rumored 585 over 13, like, I don't know if it even makes sense to the Jays to do that. Like, obviously there's part of me that says just give him all the money in the world because he's your homegrown talent, but almost $600 million for a first baseman that's had 2 really good years and then 4 okay to decent years, right? Like, it's a very difficult thing to justify there. And you look at the highest paid players in baseball, he would be well above Mike Trout, and he'd be the 3rd highest paid player in baseball now, albeit a lot of these numbers are going to start going up. We're going to start seeing more players get paid more money as they become available. But the problem is a lot of the young players that are in Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s caliber, like I think about Fernando Tatis, all these different guys, they already signed their contracts. I mean, Tatis, 14 years, 340. I mean, that seems like a bit of a bargain at this point. He was 21 when he signed. It ends in 2034. You have the Juan Soto contract. He got very, I'm not going to say lucky, but he played his cards very right with signing contract extensions. The Nationals, Padres not actually, doing it, and then the Yankees not signing an extension with them. It is very interesting. And you can see this here. The morning after those discussions will be a frustrating time for any team, but it's especially challenging here because the Jays haven't developed enough talent internally to withstand the departure of a superstar caliber player. And in Toronto, it's not apparent when that next wave is coming because of their prospects, which their system ranking is pretty low, 24th, 23rd, 24th, depending on which one you use. But I will say they have a few prospects that have really started to soar up the rankings, and I think the prospect pool is something you can actually be seen as a positive compared to the start of last season. So I think that's something that could be a positive. But let me know down below, are you upset? What side of the fence are you on with the offer being supposedly revealed? And the situation's getting a bit wild, and now we just had to shift our focus to the Jays playing games like they do in 3 or 4 days. And in 3 days, we'll be able to watch some Blue Jays spring training baseball around the MLB. So we're going to keep you up to date with all the latest news. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you later.